From center court at Wimbledon, straight to the streets of Manila. 3 weeks ago, casual sports fans outside the Philippines had probably never heard her name. Today, thousands of people are planning to line up for hours, just to catch a glimpse of her walking by. What did Eala do that turned her into this? She beat a Wimbledon champion. She made history no Filipino has ever made. Not in tennis, not at this level, not ever. And on July 15th, an entire country is going to prove exactly how much that mattered. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this isn't just a tennis story. This is a national moment, years in the making, and it's only just getting started. Before we get to Manila, let's rewind, because to really understand what's happening on July 15th, you need to understand what Eala actually did at Wimbledon, match by match, because this wasn't a lucky run. This was 4 matches, each one harder than the last, each one raising the stakes higher than the one before it. Round 1, Renata Zarazua of Mexico. On paper, a winnable match, but nothing guaranteed at Grand Slam level. Eala didn't just win, she made it look easy, closing it out 6-1, 6-2. A dominant, almost effortless statement win that immediately put the rest of the draw on notice. This was not a player who looked nervous on the big stage. This was a player who looked like she belonged there. Round 2 brought something more personal, a grudge match. Weeks earlier, at the Eastbourne Open, Australia's Maya Joint had beaten Eala in straight sets. It was still fresh. And for a set, it looked like history might repeat itself. Eala dropped the first set 3-6, and for a moment, it looked like her Wimbledon run might end right there in round 2. But instead of folding, she flipped a switch. She didn't lose another set for the rest of the match, closing it out 6-2, 6-0. Revenge complete, and a signal that this run wasn't going to be a fluke. Then came the match nobody saw coming. The match that changed everything. Round 3, Iga Swiatek, defending Wimbledon champion. World number 3. Widely considered one of the 2 or 3 best players on the planet, a 5-time Grand Slam champion standing on the opposite side of the net from a 21-year-old who had never been past the second round of a major in her career. And Eala didn't just compete with her, she beat her. She won the opening set in one of the most dramatic tiebreaks of the entire tournament, 7-6, and then, instead of the nerves catching up to her, she closed the match out clinically, 6-2. In that single moment, a 21-year-old from the Philippines had just eliminated the defending champion of the most prestigious tournament in tennis. Center court didn't erupt, but court 12 did, and within minutes, so did social media across the entire world. Her incredible run finally came to an end in round 4, against Italy's Jasmine Paolini, a top 5 player in her own right, in a battle that went the full distance, 3 hard-fought sets, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. She lost that match. But by that point, the damage, in the best possible sense, was already done. Eala had already rewritten history, and no scoreline from that final match could ever take that away from her. Now here's where it gets interesting, because what she did in those 4 matches didn't just make headlines for a week. It rewrote the record book for an entire sport, in an entire country, and the numbers behind are honestly staggering when you slow down and actually look at them. Eala walked out of Wimbledon with a career-high ranking of world number 28, smashing her previous best of number 29, a mark she had only set months earlier at Indian Wells. That alone would be a career highlight for most players. But here's the part that matters even more. She became the first Filipino player in history to be seeded at a Grand Slam tournament. And she became the first Filipino, man or woman, in the entire history of the sport, to reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam singles event. Let that actually sink in for a second. Philippine tennis has existed, at some level, for generations. Players have come and gone, some talented, some promising, but nobody, not once, has gone this far at a major tournament. Eala didn't just have a great 2 weeks of tennis. She moved the ceiling of what is considered possible for an entire nation's tennis program, and she did it in front of the entire tennis world watching. But here's what made this run genuinely different from every other breakout story we've covered on this channel. It wasn't only happening on the court. It was happening just as loudly in the stands. Court 12 at Wimbledon turned into something commentators openly said they had never quite seen before. Philippine flags draped over railings, chants breaking out between points, entire sections of fans who had flown in from the other side of the world just to be there in person. When she beat Swiatek, the crowd reaction inside that stadium went viral within hours, clipped and reposted across every platform, and international outlets that had never covered Philippine tennis before suddenly couldn't stop talking about it. not just about her game, but about the sheer, overwhelming passion of a fan base that had followed her from thousands of miles away. For a country that has never had a true global tennis star, someone who could walk out onto the biggest stages in the sport and actually compete, Eala became exactly that, almost overnight, and almost entirely on the back of a nation that decided to show up for her. So when Globe Telecom announced they were bringing her home for a dedicated fan event, it honestly wasn't a surprise that people immediately started planning to show up hours early. Some fans have already said online they're arriving before sunrise just to be near the front of the line. Home court, the Eala Fan Meet experience, happens this Wednesday, July 15th, at the Glorieta Activity Center in Manila. Registration opens at 4 p.m., with the main program kicking off at 6 p.m. This isn't going to be a quiet, low-key meet and greet. Every early sign points to this being one of the largest gatherings the Philippine tennis scene has ever organized around a single athlete, and given everything you just heard, it's not hard to understand why. Zoom out for a second though, because this moment is bigger than one fan meet, bigger than one event on one Wednesday evening in Manila. The Philippines has produced world-class boxers who've become national icons. It's produced basketball talent that's obsessed over at every level of the sport. But it has never, at this level, at a Grand Slam, on the biggest courts in the world, produced a tennis player who could walk in and beat the very best players alive. Until now. And the ripple effects are already showing up. Since Wimbledon, tennis clubs across the country are reporting a noticeable jump in kids signing up for lessons, young girls specifically, picking up a racket for the very first time because they watched someone who looks like them, who sounds like them, who comes from the same towns and cities they do, go out and do something that used to feel impossible. This homecoming isn't just a celebration of what she's already accomplished. It might genuinely be the moment an entire generation of future Filipino tennis players looks back on and says, "That's when it started. That's when I decided this was possible for me too." So what does Eala do now that she's a household name across her entire country? She doesn't slow down. If anything, she goes straight into one of the toughest, most demanding stretches of her young career. Next up is the Wimbledon DC Open, a WTA 500 event in Washington running from July 27th through August 2nd, and the field there is genuinely stacked. She'll be competing in the same draw as Naomi Osaka, Venus Williams, Alina Svitolina, Marta Kostyuk, and Leylah Fernandez. A murderer's row of talent and experience that will tell us a lot about whether this Wimbledon run was a peak, or just the beginning of a new level for her game. From there, it's off to Toronto for the National Bank Open, a WTA 1000 event, one of the biggest, deepest, most competitive tournaments on the entire calendar outside the Grand Slams themselves. And later this year, Eala is also set to return to the Singapore Open, a tournament she's called personally special, having competed there as a junior long before anyone outside Southeast Asia knew her name. All of it is building, piece by piece, toward her second career appearance at the US Open, where the entire tennis world will be watching to see if Wimbledon was a turning point or a one-off. And she isn't making this climb alone in her generation, which honestly makes it even more exciting to watch. She's part of an emerging wave of young players, names like Iva Jovic and Joao Fonseca, who are being talked about across the sport as the future faces of tennis, the ones who'll define the next decade once the current era of stars starts to wind down. If she can carry this form into the hardcourt season, several respected analysts and former players have already suggested a top 20 ranking isn't far off, potentially within the next 12 months. And for a country with virtually no tennis pedigree at this level, coming from a nation where tennis has always played a distant second or third to boxing and basketball, that wouldn't just be a good story anymore. That would be a genuine changing of the guard, a permanent shift in what Philippine sports fans are allowed to dream about. So here's the real story underneath all of this. A 21-year-old from the Philippines walked onto court 12 at Wimbledon, beat the defending champion, rewrote her country's entire tennis history in the span of 4 matches, and is now about to walk into a stadium full of fans back home who have been waiting their entire lives for a moment exactly like this one. Here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know. Do you think she cracks the top 20 before this year's US Open? Drop your prediction in the comments below. I'll be reading through them and pinning the best ones I see. And if you want to actually see how she does against Osaka and Venus Williams in Washington in just a couple of weeks, make sure you're subscribed right now, because we are going to be covering every single moment of it live, right here, as it happens.